Leo was a young designer living in Seattle, working tirelessly at a mid-sized creative firm known for its impossible deadlines and caffeine-driven culture. His days were filled with sketches, revisions, and late-night brainstorming sessions that often left him exhausted by the time he returned home. Yet, no matter how long or stressful the day had been, all the tension seemed to melt away the moment he stepped through the apartment door. Because Sophie was there. Sophie was everything Leo never knew he needed. Gentle, warm, and endlessly thoughtful, she had a way of making ordinary moments feel extraordinary. She wasn't loud or demanding, instead, her presence carried a quiet comfort that grounded him. Every morning, she brewed his coffee just the way he liked it, strong, with a hint of caramel, and every evening, she waited for him with a soft smile and a home-cooked meal that filled their small kitchen with warmth and laughter. They had been living together for 6 months, yet it felt like they had always shared a life. Their apartment wasn't big, but it was theirs, a cozy space decorated with framed photos, mismatched mugs, and sticky notes Sophie liked to leave on the fridge. Sometimes, she would write simple reminders, "Don't forget your umbrella." Other times, she left small confessions of affection, "You make the world better just by being in it." Leo often thought their life felt like a quiet love story, not the kind full of drama or grand gestures, but one built from little acts of care. Watching a movie under a shared blanket, dancing clumsily while brushing their teeth, or whispering dreams into the dark, those were the moments that defined them. To him, Sophie was home. Her laughter softened the sharp edges of his days, and her kindness gave him something to look forward to. In a world full of deadlines, she was his only pause, his safe place, his reason to smile. Rumors began to spread through the office like wildfire. The company's board had appointed a new CEO, a woman known across the industry for her icy demeanor and ruthless efficiency. Her name was Miss Clark, and according to whispers in the hallway, she had fired half a department in her previous company for failing to meet expectations. No one had ever seen her smile. No one dared to be late to her meetings. She was, as people called her behind closed doors, the ice queen of the corporate world. The moment the announcement was made, tension gripped the entire design floor. Conversations grew hushed, laughter disappeared, and even the sound of keyboards felt cautious, as if everyone was afraid she could hear their mistakes through the walls. The once lively atmosphere became sterile and heavy, ruled by the unseen presence of the woman who would soon take over. Leo tried to brush off the anxiety at first. "How bad could she really be?" he said to his coworkers, forcing a smile. But when he overheard 2 senior managers whispering that she demanded perfection and had no tolerance for creative excuses, his confidence began to fade. That night, as he sat at his desk staring at the city lights, he texted Sophie, "New CEO's arriving next week. Everyone says she's terrifying. I might not survive the first meeting." Sophie replied almost instantly, "Don't worry, my brave designer. You're talented and kind. No one can intimidate you unless you let them." Her words made him smile, easing the knot in his chest. When he came home later, the smell of rosemary and garlic filled the apartment. Sophie had cooked his favorite meal, roasted chicken with mashed potatoes, and greeted him with a soft kiss on the cheek. "Rough day?" she asked, her eyes full of warmth. "You have no idea," he sighed. "The Ice Queen is coming for us." Sophie chuckled, pouring him a glass of wine. "Then you'd better eat well and gather strength. Heroes always face their dragons, don't they?" He laughed, tension slowly dissolving. As they ate and talked, Leo felt safe again, believing that no matter how cold the new CEO might be, Sophie's warmth would always be enough to keep his world bright. He didn't know then that the Ice Queen and the woman smiling across the dinner table were one and the same. Life with Sophie moved at an easy, comforting rhythm, the kind of rhythm Leo had never known before. The mornings began with soft sunlight spilling through the curtains and the smell of coffee already brewing. Sophie would hum quietly as she flipped pancakes or scrambled eggs, wearing one of his oversized shirts, her hair a little messy but her smile perfect. They'd sit by the small kitchen window, eating breakfast together while the city outside buzzed awake. In those moments, Leo felt like the luckiest man alive. He had spent years chasing projects, promotions, and deadlines, but nothing compared to the quiet joy of sharing a meal with someone who made him feel seen. Sophie was never demanding. She never complained about his long hours or canceled plans. Instead, she always found ways to make his world gentler: a neatly folded shirt before work, a text reminding him to eat lunch, or a warm dinner waiting no matter how late he came home. Leo often told his friends that Sophie was a freelancer, a writer or designer, maybe, something that allowed her to work from home and manage her own time. It made sense to him. She always seemed busy but never spoke much about her work. When he asked, she'd just smile mysteriously and say, "It's nothing exciting, really. Just little projects." He never pressed further. Love, he believed, meant trust, and he trusted her completely. Sometimes, guilt crept in when he saw her waiting up late, laptop closed, eyes heavy with sleep. He'd promise, "I'll finish earlier tomorrow," though both of them knew he probably wouldn't. Sophie would only shake her head and smile, whispering, "Just come home safe. That's all I need." Their evenings were a montage of laughter and tenderness, movie nights on the couch, playful arguments about which takeout to order, stolen kisses in the kitchen. Leo would watch her laugh at something silly on TV and think, "This is what real happiness looks like." He didn't know that behind those same smiles, Sophie was living a double life, one carefully hidden behind warmth and routine, where every minute she spent as his Sophie was borrowed time. The first Monday after the announcement arrived like a storm. At exactly 8 a.m., the elevator doors opened, and the new CEO, Miss Clark, stepped into the building for the first time. No one dared to breathe too loudly. She was punctual, composed, and terrifyingly elegant in her dark suit. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with military precision, echoing through the lobby like the sound of authority itself. By noon, the first internal memo was sent. Every department had 1 week to submit a complete restructuring plan, new strategies, revised budgets, and detailed performance goals. There were no exceptions. The email ended with one chilling sentence: "Mediocrity is no longer acceptable." The office transformed overnight. Desks were buried under papers, people skipped lunch, and even the usual gossip at the coffee machine vanished. The only thing louder than the sound of keyboards was the collective anxiety that hung in the air. Leo and his design team worked late every night, fueled by caffeine and fear. His creativity, usually so effortless, now felt like a burden. Every line, every font, every color choice made him second-guess himself. Still, amid the chaos, his phone would light up with Sophie's messages, his only reminder that warmth still existed somewhere outside those glass walls. "You've got this, love. Just do your best. Don't forget to eat something. I packed leftovers for you." No matter how scary your boss sounds, she's still human. Her words always made him smile. Sometimes, she'd send a picture of their cat asleep on the couch or a short video of dinner simmering on the stove. It was like she was pulling him back home through the noise and exhaustion. At night, when he finally stumbled through the door, Sophie would already be waiting with dinner and a quiet embrace. She never asked too many questions, only listened, nodding softly as he complained about the impossible deadlines and the terrifying woman no one had even dared to talk to directly. Leo had no idea that Sophie knew exactly how the new CEO operated, because every policy, every decision, every sleepless night at the company was set in motion by her own hands. It started with little things. Details so small that Leo almost didn't notice. One evening, he came home earlier than usual and found Sophie standing in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of a white silk blouse. Her hair was tied neatly, her makeup subtle but polished, and on the bed lay a perfectly pressed navy blazer. She looked like someone getting ready for an important business meeting, not the carefree freelancer he thought she was. "Oh, you're home early," she said quickly, slipping off the jacket and tossing it over a chair. "I was just trying on something for a friend's photo shoot." Leo chuckled, not thinking twice. Sophie always had creative friends who needed help with something. He kissed her on the forehead and went to shower, the image quickly fading from his mind, but the signs didn't stop there. Late at night, when Leo pretended to sleep, he would hear the faint buzz of Sophie's phone. She'd tiptoe into the kitchen to answer, her voice hushed and serious. Once, he caught fragments of her words, "Yes, I've reviewed the report. Make sure the proposal is ready by Thursday." When he asked her about it the next morning, Sophie smiled, brushing it off. "Just helping a client with her startup. She's a bit demanding." Her explanation sounded reasonable, but there was something different in her tone, a weight she didn't usually carry. Her once relaxed demeanor grew tense. She started waking up earlier, checking emails before breakfast, and even leaving the apartment for quick errands that stretched for hours. Leo's instincts told him something was off, but his heart refused to listen. He convinced himself that everyone had secrets, that Sophie deserved her privacy. After all, she had always supported him, cooked for him, waited for him, loved him unconditionally. One evening, as she sat quietly on the couch, typing away on her laptop, Leo brought her tea and kissed her shoulder. "Don't work too hard," he said softly. She smiled, but her eyes flickered with something unreadable, guilt, perhaps, or fear, and though Leo didn't realize it then, that was the beginning of the distance between them, the invisible wall built from secrets she could no longer hide. The email arrived on a gray Tuesday morning. Design department presentation, attendance required, L. Hayes. It was signed by none other than Miss Clark. The team buzzed with nervous energy as they prepared. This would be their first face-to-face meeting with the elusive CEO who had single-handedly turned the entire company upside down in less than a week. Leo spent the night perfecting his slides, rehearsing his lines until exhaustion blurred his thoughts. Sophie had noticed his anxiety and encouraged him gently. "You'll be amazing," she said, tucking a loose strand of hair behind his ear. "Just be yourself." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. The next morning, Leo straightened his tie, trying to steady his breathing as he and his team waited outside the glass conference room. The frosted doors loomed before them, the company logo etched across the surface like a barrier between safety and judgment. "Miss Clark will see you now," the assistant said. The doors opened and Leo's world shattered. Sitting at the head of the long mahogany table was Sophie. Her hair was pulled into a sleek bun, her expression unreadable. Gone was the warmth he knew, replaced by poise, authority, and a gaze sharp enough to cut through steel. The woman who had kissed him goodbye that morning now looked at him as if he were just another name on her employee list. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her tone cool and professional. "Please begin your presentation." Leo froze. His throat tightened. For a moment, he thought he must be hallucinating, that this was some cruel trick of exhaustion. But every detail was undeniable, her voice, her eyes, even the faint scar near her lip he had kissed countless times. He stumbled through the presentation, barely hearing his own words. Sophie, no, Miss Clark, took notes without expression, occasionally nodding but offering no sign of recognition. When it ended, she simply said, "Thank you. I expect revisions by Friday." The room emptied, but Leo remained standing, staring at her in disbelief. As their eyes met for the briefest second, something flickered behind her composure, regret, maybe, or pain. But just as quickly, it was gone. That night, Leo couldn't tell which hurt more, the betrayal, or the terrifying realization that the woman he loved had always been a stranger. The next day's meeting was worse, far worse than Leo could have imagined. The entire design department gathered in the conference room, a heavy silence hanging in the air like fog before a storm. Miss Clark sat at the head of the table, expression carved in stone. Her presence commanded fear. Even the senior managers avoided her gaze. "Let's begin," she said flatly, flipping through their revised proposal. The sound of turning pages felt deafening in the quiet room. Leo sat 2 seats away, his palms sweating, trying to appear calm. But his heart pounded so hard it drowned out his thoughts. When she spoke again, her words cut through the air like ice. "This," she said, tapping her manicured finger against the report, "is lazy work. Incomplete. Uninspired. If this is the best your team can deliver, then I'm seriously reconsidering your department's role in this company." A murmur rippled through the room. The designers exchanged panicked glances. Leo's stomach dropped. She continued, her tone merciless. "You call this design thinking? It's amateur. Did anyone even bother to research the client's expectations? Because what I see here looks like something thrown together by interns." Her words stabbed deeper with each sentence. Leo could barely look at her. Every part of him wanted to believe this was an act, a facade she had to maintain, but the coldness in her voice, the complete lack of recognition, was unbearable. Then her eyes landed directly on him. "Mr. Hayes," she said sharply, "you led this project, didn't you?" He nodded stiffly, throat tight. "Then you should know better. Creativity isn't an excuse for sloppiness. If this happens again, I'll replace the entire design team. Understood?" The room went silent. All eyes were on Leo. His face burned with humiliation. "Yes, Miss Clark," he forced out, voice barely steady. When the meeting ended, Sophie stood, gathering her notes. "Meeting adjourned," she said, not sparing him a single glance. As everyone filed out, Leo remained frozen in his chair, staring at the spot where she had sat moments ago. The woman who once whispered, "I believe in you," now looked at him as though he was nothing. And in that instant, every tender memory, every laugh, every kiss, collapsed under the weight of betrayal. Leo sat at his desk long after everyone else had gone home, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above him. His mind refused to settle. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Sophie, no, Miss Clark, sitting at the head of the table, dissecting his work, tearing down everything he had built with the same mouth that used to whisper "I love you." His phone buzzed. A message from her. "How's your day, love? Don't forget to eat something." Leo stared at the screen, disbelief knotting in his chest. How could she? How could she talk to him like nothing had happened, like she hadn't humiliated him in front of his entire team? His hands trembled with anger, confusion, and something worse, heartbreak. He typed a reply, then deleted it. Typed again. Deleted again. Finally, he sent the shortest, coldest message he could manage. "I'll be working late. Don't wait up." The moment he hit send, he felt a pang of guilt, but it was buried beneath layers of hurt. He wanted to confront her, to demand an explanation, to make sense of the impossible, but how could he? How could he even begin to ask why the woman he loved had lied to him about everything? For hours, he stared blankly at his computer screen, pretending to work while his mind spiraled. He replayed every conversation, every late-night project she mentioned, every mysterious call. The signs had been there all along, and he had ignored them, blinded by love, by trust. Outside, the city lights flickered across the glass walls, reflections of a life he no longer recognized. Somewhere across town, Sophie, or Miss Clark, was probably reading his message, pretending to be the same caring girlfriend she had always been. When Leo finally dragged himself home past midnight, the apartment was dark except for the soft glow of a lamp. On the dining table sat a plate of reheated food, neatly covered, with a note beside it in her handwriting. "I know today was hard. Eat something, please." I'm proud of you. He stood there for a long time, the note trembling in his hand. The words were pure Sophie, tender, familiar, yet now they felt foreign, hollow. For the first time, Leo realized he no longer knew who he was coming home to. When Leo finally pushed open the door to their apartment, the familiar scent of vanilla and lavender wrapped around him, the scent of home. The lights were dim, a half-finished cup of tea sat on the coffee table, and Sophie was curled up on the sofa, fast asleep. A soft blanket had slipped halfway off her shoulders, her hair messy, her breathing slow and peaceful. For a long moment, Leo just stood there, frozen. She looked exactly like the woman he loved, gentle, innocent, unguarded. Not the cold, calculating CEO who had humiliated him in front of everyone hours ago. How could both versions exist inside the same person? He placed his briefcase quietly on the floor, afraid of waking her. But even as he looked at her, his chest tightened with confusion. Was this the real Sophie? Or just a disguise carefully built to make him fall in love with her? Sophie stirred awake when she heard the sound of his keys. "You're home," she murmured, smiling sleepily. "You must be exhausted." She sat up, rubbing her eyes, and reached for him instinctively. "Rough day?" Leo forced a faint smile and nodded, sitting beside her. "Yeah, my boss wasn't happy with the proposal. Got an earful today." Her eyes softened immediately, full of sympathy. "You work so hard, Leo. Don't let it get to you, okay?" She reached up and began to massage his shoulders, her touch light, familiar, and unbearably kind. The contradiction tore at him. This same hand had just signed a memo threatening to replace his entire team. This same voice had called his work lazy and uninspired. Yet now, it whispered comfort like nothing had changed. He wanted to pull away, to demand the truth, to shout, "Who are you really?" But instead, he just sat there, silent, trapped between love and betrayal. Sophie leaned her head gently against his shoulder and whispered, "No matter what happens at work, I'll always be here for you." The words should have soothed him, but they only deepened the ache. Leo stared blankly ahead, the flickering light from the TV casting shadows across their faces. For the first time, her warmth felt like a lie, and he couldn't tell whether the woman beside him was comforting him, or quietly destroying him. Leo lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling as the faint sound of rain tapped against the window. Sophie was asleep beside him, her face calm, unbothered, a picture of peace. But inside him, everything was chaos. He turned to look at her, the woman he had once believed he knew better than anyone. Now, every detail of her, the softness of her breathing, the way she smiled in her sleep, felt like a question he couldn't answer. Who was she when she wasn't with him? Which version was real, the kind girlfriend who made him breakfast, or the ruthless CEO who had torn him down in front of dozens of people? The thought burned. Maybe, he had never truly known Sophie at all. His mind replayed every moment of their relationship, the mysterious late-night calls, her evasive answers about work, the quiet authority she carried even in casual clothes. He had brushed it off as confidence, but now, he saw it differently, as control. When dawn broke, Leo rose quietly, slipping out of bed without waking her. He looked at her one last time before leaving for work, and realized something had changed. The warmth in his chest was gone, replaced by a dull ache of mistrust. At the office, he kept his distance. He avoided her gaze in meetings, spoke only when required, and treated every message from her as if it were from a stranger. Sophie noticed, of course, her eyes lingered on him longer, her tone softer when she spoke. But Leo couldn't bring himself to respond. That invisible wall between them grew higher each day. He still loved her, that was the cruelest part. Even when doubt poisoned his thoughts, one look at her smile could still make his heart ache. But love without trust was a cage, and he could feel the bars closing in. Every word, every touch, every moment now carried an unspoken fear that everything he had believed in, every promise, every kiss, had all been part of an illusion carefully crafted by the woman he loved. The second presentation began under a cloud of tension. Leo's eyes were ringed with exhaustion, his voice hoarse from a sleepless night. Every word he spoke felt heavy, rehearsed, defensive, as if he were shielding himself from more pain. Across the room, Miss Clark, Sophie, watched in silence, her expression unreadable. When the meeting ended, the others quickly filed out, grateful to escape the pressure. But Sophie's voice cut through the air. "Mr. Harris, stay." The door closed. Silence filled the room like a weight pressing on his chest. Leo didn't look at her. "If this is about my report, I'll fix it." His tone was cold, almost formal. Sophie hesitated. For a moment, the steel in her eyes softened. "Leo," she said quietly, not as a boss, but as the woman he used to come home to. "You have every right to hate me. But I didn't lie to you. I just couldn't tell you who I was yet." He laughed bitterly. "You think that makes it better? You watched me stand there, humiliated, and you said nothing." "I had to," she said, her voice trembling for the first time. "If I showed favoritism, they would have questioned everything. I worked years for this position, and one mistake could destroy it all." Leo finally looked at her. "So I was a mistake?" Her breath caught. "No. You were the only thing that felt real." For a long moment, they just stared at each other, two people who had loved deeply, now standing on opposite sides of truth and ambition. Sophie took a step closer, her eyes glistening. "Leo, please, let me explain everything. Not as your CEO. As me." He wanted to believe her. Wanted to reach for her the way he used to. But the wound was still raw, and his pride too heavy to ignore. Leo drew in a shaky breath. "Then say it, Sophie. Tell me who you really are." The room fell silent. She opened her mouth to speak, and the story froze in that fragile moment, suspended between confession and consequence, between love and the ruin of it.